Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Walder here. Welcome to the show. It's Monday. Got a good show for you guys today. We're a little late in the stream. I was having some issues with starting the stream, but now we're live, so we're good. So apologies for all that. Man, let me tell you, technology sometimes does not want to play nice. But hey, we're on the air, so it's all good. I'm just looking at the chat here for our live stream on YouTube. There's a lot of demands for
Mike Pounds.
I know. Maybe we should get
Mike Pounds
on the show today at some point. I don't know. Should be interesting. All right. Enough of that. Got some great stories here. We have breaking news actually about Republican Chris Collins, so we'll get into that soon. Then we have Donald Trump reacting to his possible impeachment. Hilarious. As well as a specific demand to meet up with his accuser. Interesting. Then we've got Fox News at war with themselves, which is the best. We're going to go after CNN for erasing women of color. Oh, that should be very interesting. Coming from this supposed sexist Bernie bro, that should be great. And we have a disastrous case in, I believe it is Mississippi. So, of course, Mississippi. But first, before I get into it, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Please like and share the stream. I also want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes that I have over the weekend. Friday was my birthday. I'm that much older now. The thing is, I don't like. So I'm 36 years old. I know, right? 36 years old. I don't necessarily celebrate birthday. I actually more celebrate the fact that I'm alive for another year, and so that's kind of how I square that. But I want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes, Sarge Tech, and many others on Twitter, social media, Tank Girl, people on the chat, obviously. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. You guys are great. Okay. Anyway, more shout outs here. I want to thank some people on Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. I want to thank Milton Holland, Mimi Price, Nicholas Beard, Nick DeGustino, Nicole Huffer, and Norma Rios. So thank you to those people for supporting independent progressive media. You want to sign up to support the show, keep us going and growing, patreon.com/TYTNation. All right, on to the news. Smooth. That's really smooth today. It's good stuff. All right. I randomly congratulate myself for not messing something up audibly. Good job, Jeff. You not mess that up. Wonderful work. Hey, you know what? It works for me. Okay. Nice one. I'm a weird guy. Okay, anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Chris Collins. Down goes Chris Collins. Actually, we didn't get him. He got himself. I'll explain. So it looks like the swamp is draining itself out, which is very interesting. This is Republican Chris Collins, who has just submitted his resignation to Nancy Pelosi. So now that resignation will be effective on Tuesday as soon as the House goes into session and officially files that resignation. So why? What's going on with Chris Collins? Well, Chris Collins, like I said, is a Republican representative in New York, and he is expected to plead guilty tomorrow to insider trading. There goes another criminal. Again, the swamp is literally draining itself, which is great. So let me explain what Chris Collins is pleading guilty to. He allegedly schemed with his son to avoid significant losses on a particular investment. This would be in a biotechnology company. So, according to prosecutors, Collins tipped off his son to confidential information about an Australian biotechnology company. Now, this is Innate Immunotherapeutics. So now Collins is a member of that board. He was actually one of the biggest shareholders, or actually the biggest shareholder on that board. They were developing something that's supposed to be incredibly revolutionary, but the clinical tests have failed. He had information that had failed before it came public, so he shared with his son the details so they could get out of that investment. So now, according to prosecutors, while at the June 2017 congressional picnic at the White House, Collins received an email from Innate Immunotherapeutics chief executive alerting the company's board that an anticipated drug trial had been a failure. Collins responded to the email, "Wow, makes no sense. How are these results even possible?" So, look, understandably, he was like freaking out, gobsmacked, right? What do you mean? This had so much promise. Now, Collins then contacted his son. Now, his son owned millions of innate immunotherapeutic shares, according to the indictment. Within a few minutes, Collins' son had called each other 6 times before connecting and talking for 6 minutes. During that call, Collins told his son about the failed drug trial, according to the indictment, which cites phone and bank records as well as texts. With that insider knowledge, Collins and his family were able to avoid significant losses before the news became public and the company's stock price fell more than 90%. So that was a very significant savings for them. They pull out of their stock before there's public knowledge of this gigantic failure. They save tons of money. Apparently, super illegal, right? So now he and his son Cameron, as well as another family member, are scheduled to change their pleas. Which before, look, Chris Collins beforehand is like, these charges, they have absolutely no merit, none whatsoever. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Insider trading? No, we've never done insider trading. Turns out, nope, they are changing their pleas to guilty on Thursday, or they're expected to. So that tells me the case that they have against Chris Collins, irrefutable. They had to have a really, really good case. Again, if you have text messages and bank statements and emails and all this information, you can say, well, here we have you on text telling your son, pull out of the deal, because this clinical trial has failed. The stock prices are going to plummet. We're going to lose a lot of money if we do not pull out of this. And that's exactly what they did. They pulled out, saved a ton of money. And that's what their case is built on, those texts and emails. So, now, here's what's interesting about Chris Collins, right? So again, Chris Collins, insider trader, okay, does whatever he needs to do to protect his money, his investment, right? Because, these people in power often do. Let's be honest about that. Of course, they want to keep their money. Nobody wants to lose their money. But again, being on the board and being in Congress, you have a unfair advantage over everyone else. And that's the big problem here. So now, Collins, huge fan of Donald Trump. So this is where it gets into speculation. This is where it gets kind of interesting, right? So now Collins was one of Donald Trump's earliest endorsers. Okay. Now that had nothing to do with his insider trading, right? But later on, even as their Republicans were backing away, some Republicans backing away, Collins kept speaking on his behalf. Now, what's important about that is he continued to speak out in favor of Donald Trump even after his indictment. Now, the White House and other Republicans are like, stay away, right? No, we don't want anything to do with Chris Collins. I don't care how nice he is to me. Stay away from Chris Collins. But no, he continues to praise Trump. In fact, as recently as last week, The congressman issued a statement criticizing Democrats' announcement of a formal impeachment investigation of Donald Trump. Don't impeach Donald Trump. Don't impeach. No, we love Donald Trump. Don't impeach him. Now, here's what I think is the consequence of all that. I mean, yes, do I believe that Chris Collins loves Donald Trump just because he agrees with his policy? Yeah, generally. Because his policy, of course, helps people who are incredibly wealthy with the tax cuts and everything. Of course, right? Now, how you stay with Donald Trump is you scream, pardon. Please pardon me, Donald Trump. Please pardon me. Look, I'm against your impeachment. I'm against your impeachment. Please pardon me. Chris Collins knows he's going down. He knew he was going down, I think, for quite some time. Because, again, the evidence against him, quite irrefutable. So now, please pardon me. I don't think that's going to happen. Look, I don't know if Donald Trump really knew Chris Collins or really cared about Chris Collins at all. I know the White House is like, don't come near him. Don't come near him at all. But again, I don't know. I don't think that there is going to be a pardon situation. I think it's very, very unlikely. But, why not try? Why not try? And I think that's what this situation is. That's what's him continuing to defend Donald Trump even at this point is. So, and that's just a fun little aside, a little bit of speculation, right? That said, Collins, a lot of trouble now. Again, Martha Stewart went to prison for insider trading. That's one thing, by the way, that is one crime that rich people can do that will get you locked up. Why? Because you screw over other rich people. Because then these wealthy investors, of course, they didn't have this information beforehand. And so they're like, well, we just lost a ton of money, but you knew, you didn't tell anybody. So you saved a lot of money. I lost a ton of money. Unacceptable. Again, one rule of being part of the club is that you do not betray other members of the club. That's why Bernie Madoff got in such big trouble. So Chris Collins, he's in big trouble. I wonder how long they're going to lock him up for. I almost went into a chant there, but I decided against it. We'll see what happens. But big news. Finally, a rich person is being held accountable. Okay. Anyway. Let's move on. Let's go to Donald Trump and his reaction on impeachment. This should be good. Continued meltdown. Now, President Trump continues to melt down at the idea of an impeachment inquiry that has been launched by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. And, of course, he is taking it in the most Trump way possible. Now, look, he took to Twitter, as he's wont to do, and he's had some outbursts. The latest ones should be kind of concerning because now he has suggested the arrest of a Democratic congressman. Now, this congressman would be House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff. So here's his tweet. He said, Representative Adam Schiff illegally made up a fake and terrible statement, pretended it to be mine as the most important part of my call to the Ukrainian president, and read it aloud to Congress and the American people. It bore no relationship to what I said on the call. Arrest for treason. Oh, no, look, that's a serious charge. But look, what that statement is, I think it's likely when Trump asked for a favor from President Vladimir Zelensky. And that favor, and actually I think there are two favors in there, investigate CrowdStrike to find Hillary's missing server, and then more importantly, investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter. So now on Biden and his son, that is systemic corruption. Now, systemic corruption, by nature, is not illegal because it's literally in the system. It is how the system is rigged against you and I. So he gets a lot of money, $50,000 for sitting on the board, Hunter Biden does, of this Ukrainian gas company. And now Biden with, of course, the backing of the international community and the United States government, um, went and called for the removal of a prosecutor that was looking into that company. Now, that benefited, of course, Hunter Biden as he continued to get money from this company. And there's a massive conflict of interest. But again, that is systemic corruption. It's an example of what is of corruption that is basically legal. Okay, all right. So look, you want to have a conversation about eliminating that systemic corruption? Well, that's a wonderful conversation. I would love to have that, and let's actually do something about it. Because I look around the U.S. government, and everywhere there is systemic corruption. Now that is different than Donald Trump's corruption, and that is personal corruption. Now, personal corruption is basically an example of what Donald Trump has been doing for quite some time and what he got caught allegedly doing on this phone call to Zelensky, saying, "Hey, look, we've been very good to you. We've been very, very good to Ukraine, but it has not been reciprocal." And again, this is while Trump was holding up $400 million, near $400 million in military aid against, by the way, Russia, which is already annexed a part of Ukraine. So they're a little bit worried about Ukraine coming in. And so they need that money for defensive purposes, right? And the United States was providing that money to the Ukrainians. Well, so now Trump holds it up. He makes Mnuchin, the OMB, hold up that money, that payment that Congress already authorized. And then they have this call. We've been very good to you, but you haven't been good to us. Now, we've been better than the EU, of course. And Zelensky says, yes, you've been so much better than the EU. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to buy missiles from you. We're going to buy javelins. Trump says, no, you know what I need a favor of? CrowdStrike. Find that server. And then Joe Biden's got a corruption problem here. Why don't you investigate that for me? Because many people want to know. So that right there, look, investigating and asking a foreign country to investigate your political rivals, that is corruption. But you know why? Because that will help, supposedly help your reelection chances, your political reelection chances. So massively problematic. All right. So now, this tweet, again, follows another one where Trump urged an investigation into Adam Schiff for treason, supposed the charge of treason. Now, what did Adam Schiff do that would merit treason? I haven't seen nothing illegal that Adam Schiff has done. But since it's against Donald Trump, it must be treason. Now I'm thinking of that. I'm sorry. Now I'm thinking of it's treason then. Yeah, it's Star Wars. Okay, I'm a nerd. Anyway, it's a serious crime, though. It's the act of working against your own country. You guys know that. And the punishment is death. So that's, again, super serious, right? Very dangerous allegation. And, of course, in the case of Adam Schiff, without merit, completely without merit. And I'm not like a huge fan of Adam Schiff. But anyway, it gets worse. Trump also had quoted Pastor Robert Jeffress. Now, Robert Jeffress, over the weekend, said that impeachment will cause a civil war. He said, civil war-like fracture in this nation from which our country will never heal. Okay. So now Jeffress, he's an insane person. He thinks that abortion caused 9/11, that gay sex makes people explode, all sorts of crazy things. I'm not kidding. He once compared gay sex to plugging like a TV or something into the wrong type of outlet that makes it explode, like a 220. Yeah, that's crazy. But the guy is totally nuts. But now, unfortunately, he has an air of legitimacy because the President of the United States will retweet his nonsensical ramblings. And so what, of course, is obviously dangerous about that is that there are people who are out there who are heavily armed and that have been stocking up on guns, making bombs, and are looking at actually starting a second civil war. Now, I'm talking about these white supremacists, right? So now, just last week, by the way, an Army soldier was arrested for wanting to kill left-wing figures. They've been going after Antifa and Beto O'Rourke. Now, look, I don't agree with Antifa, obviously. I don't agree with their methods, right? And so, okay, there's a little bit of disagreement there, but they're not a terrorist group. Name one person that they've murdered. They, look, again, they're problematic, but they're not equal to right-wing terror. In fact, look, every domestic terror attack that happened in the United States was inspired, and that's in 2018 alone, was right-wing. So we don't have this gigantic issue of left-wing domestic terrorism. I mean, I think the worst is, again, an Antifa guy punches out a white supremacist versus, of course, these massive right-wing attacks that kill many people. There's no equal here. It's way imbalanced. Okay, anyway. So now, Jeffress also told Fox News the Democrats, quote, no, the only impeachable offense that President Trump has committed was beating Hillary Clinton in 2016. I know, clever, right? That's the unpardonable sin for which the Democrats will never forgive him. Now, Hillary Clinton lost because she was a terrible candidate. Yes, did she win the popular vote? Yes. But look, again, the Electoral College is an absolute disaster. I would get rid of it in a day if I could. So, nonetheless, he did win the Electoral College. And she ran a terrible campaign. She didn't campaign in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? But no, this is not it. And that's the problem here. Right? In reality, Donald Trump is incredibly corrupt. He is knee-deep in personal corruption. Now, again, the difference between himself and the Clintons was personal versus systemic corruption. Also applicable to Joe Biden with his systemic corruption. And the Clintons made billions of dollars off politics, right? They got incredibly rich, incredibly powerful off politics. Systemic corruption. You want to have a conversation and getting rid of that systemic corruption? I am all for it. A lot of it has to do with getting money out of politics and also money out of the media. But anyway, that corruption, Donald Trump's corruption, of which this Ukraine thing is an example of, has gotten to a level that even Republicans are not able to ignore. Again, you have Mitt Romney calling it out. And you have Adam Kinzinger. Now, Adam Kinzinger is an Illinois Republican. Now, he had some very strong words. And this is one of the newest condemnations from a Republican. He said, and this was on Twitter, that he has visited nations ravaged by civil war. Donald Trump and he tweeted at Donald Trump. He said, I've never imagined such a quote to be repeated by a president. This is beyond repugnant. Now, Kinzinger, I do not agree with his policy positions. Obviously, he's a Republican. I'm a progressive. We don't agree on much, right? But, man, I got to give him credit. He's ballsy. It is really ballsy for a president to come out and denounce, or I'm sorry, for a Republican to come out and denounce the president with such strong words. You don't see that from the Republican side. So, yeah, I give him a lot of credit. Now, because right now, most of the elected officials, elected Republicans, are absolute cowards. Did you know that if an impeachment vote were held today in the Senate, 35 Republicans would vote for it, but only if it were a private vote, a secret ballot, so that we wouldn't know which Republicans voted in favor? Absolute cowardice. That's over half of the Republicans in the caucus in the Senate. So that's not a minor number. It's not like, 2 or 3 would be okay with impeachment, would vote in favor of impeachment if it went to the Senate. No. That's 35 of the over 50 Republicans. But again, only if it's a secret ballot. So there is an appetite among Republicans for impeachment. And they're starting to come around because at some point, You can no longer stay silent or defend the indefensible like this. Okay. All right. Let me take out some garbage. And then we'll get to the rest of the show. All right. President Trump now wants to meet with the whistleblower that revealed his impeachable offenses to Congress. So now this is following days of harassment and even talks of treason and the death penalty against said whistleblower. So my guess is that no, he or she is not going to want to meet with the president. Now, in a series of tweets, Trump laid out what he believes to be his case. And this is interesting. He said, like every American, I deserve to meet my accuser, especially when this accuser, the so-called whistleblower, represented a perfect conversation with a foreign leader in a totally inaccurate and fraudulent way. Well, there is one way that you could make things clear. You released a transcript. You didn't release a transcript. You released a memo. So that's one thing that, again, anybody who calls it a transcript, they're lying to you at this point, because even what the White House even released said on it, memorandum. So now let's continue with that before I get more into that, okay? Schiff, he said, made up what I actually said by lying to Congress. Not true. His lies were made in perhaps the most blatant and sinister manner ever seen in the Great Chamber. He wrote down and read terrible things, then said it was from the mouth of the President of the United States. I want Schiff questioned at the highest level for fraud and treason. Again, very, very serious allegations. Okay. Now, in addition, he said, I want to meet not only my accuser, who presented second and third-hand information, but also the person who illegally gave this information, which was largely incorrect, to the whistleblower. Was this person spying on the U.S. president? Big consequences. Oh, yeah, any whistleblower who sees big consequences at the end of that, and or just reads that entire tweet thread, they're not going to want to meet with the president. I can guarantee them that. In fact, what they're going to want to do is get into protective custody. And that's actually what happened. So now, okay, so look, what happened last week too, combine this, right, with the fact that we know some information about this whistleblower, their CIA agent that was assigned to detail at the White House. Okay, so the New York Times gave out that information. Well, congratulations. Well, look, I know you might say, but you just gave out that information. Well, at this point, everyone pretty much already knows, and this person is now in protective custody. In fact, according to 60 Minutes, and this is, I think as of yesterday, they had obtained a letter that indicates the government whistleblower who set off the impeachment inquiry of President Trump is now under federal protection because he or she fears for their safety. And look, if you were in that situation, wouldn't you? I know I would. So now after this happened, Trump earlier today tweets out this hashtag fake whistleblower. I mean, again, I'm not quite sure what that means, what that's supposed to mean, that there is no whistleblower that just made the whole thing up. That's no. Or maybe the whole thing about second and third hand information, which again, if you learn that, even if you didn't specifically see it, but you trust all the people that you work with and that you're around with, and they come to you and they say, hey, look, I saw this. I know that this happened. I heard this phone call. They locked away the transcript. This is a big problem. And you go, okay, I'm going to go up to Deshane and I'm going to report this because I am also not comfortable with this. That is a whistleblower. It's exactly what he is. So, or she, he or she. We don't know the identity of this this person, right? And also remember that the inspector general called this credible information. Very, very important to remember. And besides, if they were not concerned about this, and I'm talking the White House now, if Trump and the White House were not concerned, why lock the actual transcript away in a private server meant for only the most top secret stuff? There's no top secret stuff inside of this transcript. They locked it away anyway in a place where they regularly store national secrets. You're not supposed to lock away possible politically damaging stuff. And that's what impeachment is, by the way. Impeachment is a political process. So they locked that away for politics. Well, it must be really bad. Now, a little bit of an aside here. Putin says he hopes his calls between him and Donald Trump don't get released. That's also really interesting. He also says, Putin says, you got to get our permission first. No, that's not how that works. That's definitely not how that works. But here's the thing, right? Trump is guilty of asking world leaders for personal political favors. He is deeply personally corrupt. I believe so. I believe this. Why else would someone like President Trump seek office? We know who he is. Look, I don't think it's because he wants to serve the people. No. Look, I believe he rode a populist wave. Now, I was hoping that maybe he would do some decent things. Now, one thing I could say is pulling out of TPP, but then again, what he replaced NAFTA with involved some certain sections of TPP. So in reality, we actually end up having a worse NAFTA. So congratulations on that. I guess one good thing is so far he's kept us out of wars, but we don't know how long that's going to last because he is such a wild card. We just don't know. We just don't know. No, the reason that he became president, that he ran for president in the first place, is to enrich himself. That's what this is. It's personal gain, and he has done so all throughout his presidency. Refused to divest from his businesses. Regularly herds people over to Mar-a-Lago, world leaders, to stay at his resorts. That means money in his pocket. Making deals with certain airports in Ireland to have them ferry people over to his hotels so that he makes money. It is all tinged in personal corruption. He is the most corrupt president we have ever had. And so, look, that's why he's afraid of this, right? He knows he's personally corrupt. He knows he's been doing this. And so that's why he's having a meltdown. He's afraid of the contents of the call actually coming out and proving what we've been saying all along, that he is deeply corrupt and that he will use whatever power he has to enrich himself and to help his own political standing. This impeachment inquiry, if it leads to articles of impeachment, and the scope is not narrowed just to Ukraine, and that's the way that the Democrats can screw this up. They're going to find, I think, lots of examples of Trump doing just that, using the office for political, personal gain. Because that's all he knows, and that's all he wants to do. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the Fox News story. Interesting stuff. And then I'm going to go after CNN. So that should be a lot of fun. Stay here, guys. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. And we'll be back in a minute around the nation. everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Okay, I want to, for one, thank you everybody for tuning in. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe as well for more stories and notifications and when we go live. All right, I want to read a couple of comments here from viewers. First, let's go to one of our members. Jeanette Vallona says, Trump in Ukraine is only the top of the iceberg. He is scared, and he has his feelings hurt. When does President Trump not have his feelings hurt? Presidential harassment. Screams that all the time on Twitter. But yes, no, you're right. It's a good point. All right. So now a couple of non-members, but viewers. Actually, Tia Wheeler is a patron. So thank you, Tia. She said, I will actually argue that he is the most outwardly corrupt president that we've had. The others just covered theirs up as best as they could. And so that's really why I've been trying to make the distinction between personal corruption and systemic corruption. Again, systemic is, well, I mean, it's in the system. It's how they rig the system against regular people in order to enrich themselves. For some reason here in America, we are all used to that systemic corruption. We're used to seeing it. We're used to politicians kind of covering it up and looking the other way. But personal corruption, again, that is actually the type of corruption that so far right now, at this point, is still illegal because it is so blatant, it is so in your face. And that's what Donald Trump is participating in right now. So I think he is the most outwardly, most blatant corrupt official that we have, because look, it takes a lot to have your personal corruption, I guess, overwrite. Overwrite's kind of the wrong word, but be bigger than systemic corruption, which is already in your face bad enough. Okay, and apologies for not being able to find the right words. I know words. I know big words, great words, tremendous words. Okay, anyway, one more here from Lord Regulus, and that is a really, really good point about the scope of the investigation into Ukraine. He said they cannot expand the scope. Other politicians are guilty of the same things in different ways. And that's, again, how the Democrats will likely screw this up. It's the same thing they did with the Mueller investigation, because they would not go after Donald Trump's financial crimes. Because that's the thing. Money laundering, tax evasion, wire fraud, all those different things that Trump himself. Look, Michael Cohen is sitting in prison for those things. Okay? Payoffs to people, to Stormy Daniels. Karen McDougal, same thing. So he has his co-conspirator sitting in prison right now. And President Trump, untouched. They refuse to go after him. And again, it's because everybody has this systemic corruption. Okay, anyway. Thank you for those comments. Let's get back to the show. Yes, wonderful words. All right. Let's go to Fox News. All right. Fox News has found its greatest enemy, and it is itself, at least according to Vanity Fair. Now, Gabriel Sherman, in a recent article, talked about the management bedlam at the organization, which is always fun. Now, it came to a head, basically, last week when a guest of a Trump supporter named Tucker Carlson, a little bit of you might have heard of him. He's a Trump supporter, very vocal on the network. Now, he decided to go after Andrew Napolitano. Now, this is not Tucker Carlson. This was Joe DiNagovia, right? I don't know if I said that right. But he went after Napolitano, who's also a Fox News host, called him a fool. Now, Napolitano is a conservative, but he actually does have principles. He recently backed impeachment of President Trump. Last Tuesday, Napolitano, when he was on a guest of another show, said it is a crime for the president to solicit aid for his campaign from a foreign government. Now, that should not be a controversial statement. That is a true statement, because that is the law. 100% true. But Joe DeGenova, who, is famous for, look, I've never heard of him, but apparently he's famous in the right wing for coming up with various conspiracy theories, which is always fun. He said that Napolitano was a fool. Oh, okay. Look, I think that's mild criticism, but whatever. But as far as being a fool, so only fool, like if you quote the law, you are somehow a fool when it comes to Donald Trump. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, following this, Shep Smith went after Tucker Carlson for not correcting his guest. Fox News, the network, went after Tucker Carlson. I'm sorry, not after Tucker Carlson. Went after Smith for going after Tucker Carlson. This all happened in the space of about 2 to 3 days. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. So now you also had a familiar name pop up in this story, one that we've haven't heard in quite some time. Now, who is that? Well, that would be former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Oh, okay, Paul Ryan. So now Paul Ryan apparently joined the board of Fox News back in March of this year. So now Paul Ryan feels like now he's in the position to do something. In fact, an executive close to Ryan said Paul is embarrassed about Trump, and now he has the power to do something about it. Okay. Now he's got the power to do something about it. That's interesting. Not when he was in government, not when he was passing pretty much every single policy proposal that President Trump put on the table. No, he didn't have the power to stop Trump then. But now that he got tax cuts for the rich, for his donors, for himself, and is no longer in government with any sort of real power, now he feels like he can finally take on Donald Trump. Whoa. Well then, look, I said a long time ago that Republicans will start to abandon Donald Trump after the tax cuts were passed, right? So now that was some time ago that the tax cuts had gotten passed. Well, now here's Paul Ryan saying, I'm embarrassed. Okay, well, again, he's out of government now. Like a lot of people, and by the way, a lot of Republicans have resigned related to Donald Trump. They no longer had the energy or desire to, help Donald Trump, to protect Donald Trump. They got the tax cuts. They worked with him. They got their donors. Their donors were happy. And so they said, okay, we're done. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be out there defending President Trump because he's an absolute epic disaster. Okay. So now Ryan, to be fair, he was a bit critical of President Trump during candidate Trump during the primary. But then, like most Republicans, he bowed down, kissed his ass. And that's because the base loves Donald Trump, and Republicans, their politicians are afraid of the base, and they're afraid of the donors. Trump is starting to lose both. Now, look, are there Trump diehards that will never stop supporting him? Of course. But we have some in the chat right now that are trolling me. Don't care. God bless. Right? Have fun. But look, he's lost. The Republican Party has lost the Chamber of Commerce. They will not back Republicans. They will not back Donald Trump anymore. The Chamber of freaking Commerce. They're like, no, we'll either stay neutral or we're going to back Democrats in 2020 if it's not Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. So they've lost a lot of donors. What they basically have now is still the Mercers, right? They still have the Mercer family, which of course supports Donald Trump to a T, and will continue to do so. But where are the rest of the donors? They're starting to back away because they do not want to be connected to Trump and the current Republican Party. So now, what's worse for Trump is now Fox News sees the writing on the wall. They are slowly abandoning ship, really slowly. Now, a person close to Lachlan told Sherman the Fox News has, quote, been the highest rated cable network for 17 years, and the success has never depended on any one administration. Now, that is Lachlan Murdoch, by the way. So, yeah, that's one of the guys that is now heading News Corp, which is the parent company of Fox News. So, so here's what they're doing. They're getting ready for a post-Trump era. They know it's coming. They know it's coming. Look, even if Trump wins re-election, there will still be a post-Trump era. The fact that they're getting ready for it now, because you have impeachment, because you have Donald Trump's disastrous polling in many of the swing states, just many of the states as well as general election matchups. He loses to Joe Biden. He loses to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Most Democrats he ends up losing to in general matchups. So they're looking at this and they're internally panicking. And I don't blame them. I'm not surprised. Now, on Friday, this got worse. Hannity went after the Ukraine investigation. He said it was a never ending, unceasing hysteria, lies, hoaxes, conspiracy theories, and a real clear present danger to this republic. That's Hannity. And then, of course, you had Chris Wallace on the other side saying that the astonishing and deeply misleading narrative that Trump's defenders have been using. He's been going after that narrative, which is funny because behind closed doors, Hannity is telling his associates that the whistleblower scandal is really bad for Donald Trump. So Hannity has a public position and a private position, allegedly. Now, another funny thing, those talking points that were accidentally emailed to Democrats have been used on Fox News for, multiple times. Hannity, Giuliani. Look, I showed you in one of last week's shows. Those are the talking points. Now we have people out there actually using them. So here you have the network that's kind of tearing itself apart. Now, the Hollywood Reporter's Jeremy Barr wrote that all of this is, quote, exacerbating the long simmering tensions between the news and opinion side of the network, both of which, of course, are conservative, obviously. And there's nothing wrong with that, with having a conservative perspective. We have a progressive perspective, and we're honest about that. We're open about that. Fox News is allowed to have their perspective. But even that perspective is tearing itself apart. Because here you have actual journalists and Fox News. People like Chris Wallace, who are deeply Republican, they still believe in journalism. And so, look, here's the thing. Let me give you the quote here from Barr. There's always been a gap between the network's news and opinion wings, but people who appear on Fox News tell the Hollywood Reporter that the chasm has recently been growing. Now, let me give you another quote here from Carl Cameron, who spent 20 years at Fox News and left as the network's chief political correspondent. Said he used to take the brunt of the opinion wing. I was routinely roughed up by the primetime hosts. It was clear that the entertainment side was at odds with the news department only if you lived in the middle of it. So, well, that's interesting, right? Interesting context into the fight that they've always had. But again, that divide has gotten much, much bigger in the Trump era. So now, what does this mean for Fox News? Well, it doesn't mean the death of the network, obviously. They're not going to fall apart, but it is very clear that there's a big rift between a lot of these hosts. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if Donald Trump actually does successfully get impeached or removed, right? Which would be huge, huge. Now, but remember, 35 Republicans said they would back impeachment in the Senate. They would vote for impeachment if there were a secret ballot. Now, that's not going to happen, but anyway. If that happened, Trump would probably try to start up Trump TV. And you know what he would probably do? Hire all the pro-Trump personalities from Fox News. That's what I see happening. Remember, he already tried Trump TV with that Sarabian guy. Sarabian or whatever, right? There's no reason to think that if he could, he'd try it again. He'd hire Sean Hannity, Judge Jeanine Pirro, anyone else who's unhappy with the actual, news portion of Fox News, where they actually do try to do straight news and some modicum of journalism. Who knows? Maybe that'll happen. Maybe not. It is interesting to speculate, but one thing that I can see is the network. There's a lot of people on the network that disagree with each other, but I think all of them do agree that the Trump era It's looking like it's starting to be over. We'll see, though. Okay. Let's go after CNN. All right. Now, corporate media, like CNN, has a giant bias against progressives. Now, that in itself, to some people, appears to be controversial. But throughout the show, I've shown you many examples of establishment media, CNN, MSNBC, being biased against people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, etc. Now we have another example. And that's when a CNN report praised centrist freshman congresswomen as leaders on impeachment. So now in the report, CNN anchor Dana Bash said the 5 representatives she dubbed the anti-squad. This is Representatives Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, Abigail Spanberger of Virginia, Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey, Christy Houlihan of Pennsylvania, and Elaine Luria of Virginia had engaged in risky political business by a week ago, joining more than 100 other Democrats in calling for impeachment. So these women are now the leaders, according to CNN's Dana Bash. They're the leaders on impeachment. Add in Nancy Pelosi, who is a leader and a hero for impeachment. Wait, hold on here. Now, these white, and I have to point out, these are 5 white female lawmakers. They backed impeachment following months of demands from ethics watchdogs, critics, as well as women of color. Some of these critics were Representatives Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ayanna Pressley. Also known as the Squad. You also have Representative Al Green and Representative Maxine Waters. So they have all been calling for impeachment for a long time. And now these 5 white lawmakers, these more your establishment Democrats, have decided to come around, and now CNN is calling them the leaders of impeachment. Insanity. Now, look, to be fair, okay, it is a risk to come out if you're in a conservative district. Let's be fair about that, okay? Let's be completely 100% fair. Yes, they are taking a political risk. Still, I don't think they're leaders, right? I mean, in fact, what they did is they ignored a lot of earlier criminality in the Trump administration. These women of color have been constantly pointing it out and fighting against it. Tlaib, Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, and Presley, and Waters all called for impeachment shortly after Donald Trump took office, when he started actually doing criminal things. These women, they are the real leaders because, as usual, progressives lead the way. And moderates, yes, they eventually follow somewhat, when it's safe to do so, and only when it's safe. I mean, again, do you guys remember the outrage from Democrats when Tlaib said, impeach the MFer? Nancy Pelosi attacked her. Her own Democratic colleagues attacked her, went after her. And now, suddenly, she's, impeachment. Yes, let's do that. By the way, Tlaib sponsored a bill back in March to examine whether the House should begin impeachment. You know who voted for that? Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley were just among 17 Democrats who signed on as co-sponsors. That's it. That's all. Everyone else in the Democratic establishment, they laughed at her. And some even got angry. Nancy Pelosi, of course, was refusing to consider impeachment back then. And that's, of course, related to the 10 counts of obstruction detailed in the Mueller report. And now it took the Ukrainian scandal for her to finally move. And look, she got a lot of pressure even from some of the establishment people like John Lewis. John Lewis, a legend of civil rights, finally said, okay, look, that's it. His criminality, it's too much. It's too much. We have to. That was the straw that broke Nancy Pelosi's back on this. But look, again, back to this segment where Dana Bash says these white lawmakers who nobody even ever heard of outside of establishment circles are suddenly the leaders for impeachment. You've got to be kidding. No, CNN just got a lot of major pushback about after this as well. So let me give you a couple of quotes here. One's from Ellie Mistel, executive director of the blog Above the Law. She tweeted this out. The story gives these women credit for leading impeachment when in fact they were late in the game followers. She said, if not for the work of women of color, there would have been no impeachment movement for them to glom onto. In fact, this story seems to forget. And there are others who joined her as well. Mehdi Hassan says, leaders on impeachment. What about Maxine, Rashida, Ilhan, AOC? They seem to forget about them. Marav Zonson says, this is what AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar have been arguing for ages and being shot down. And now everyone else is taking the credit. So not only did CNN, the establishment, erase the squad, they've also erased others. Representative Al Green, like I said, he spoke on the House floor in favor of impeachment back in May of 2017. Maxine Waters, one of the first to call on Congress to bring impeachment charges against the president. Back in 2017, Waters told MSNBC that there was enough evidence of Trump's obstruction of justice in the Mueller probe for Congress to be moving on impeachment. She was right. Maxine Waters was 100% correct. Isn't it funny now how white women who are members of the moderate establishment, now that they're on board, suddenly they become leaders and they erase the work of women of color? Oh, I mean, those women of color are just outliers to them. Or as Nate Silver put it, they're residue. They're just a residue, the progressives are. You've got to be kidding me. Look, Pelosi is not a leader, by the way, too. Now, she's claiming the credit as well. Oh, man, I had to start this impeachment. Well, she's not a leader. She's not bold or decisive. She was one of the people who fought against impeachment tooth and nail. We're not buying it. And we shouldn't. So let me give a quote here from Soledad O'Brien on this. And I think this is an excellent tweet on this. She said, it's not a good story. The women of color who led the impeachment push are ignored. The correspondent treats the squad in a mocking way. I'm not sure why. It's utterly unnecessary. But again, that's how the establishment works. That's how you were treated. Unless you towed the party line as a black or brown woman in the Democratic Party, this is how you're treated. And you could see it from the treatment if you just pay attention to how AOC is referred to. Again, Pelosi, going back to, the squad. I've done stories of them, of her attacking them, calling the Green New Deal a green dream or whatever, being incredibly dismissive. And again, here you have a white woman being incredibly dismissive of women of color who are progressive. Look, if your feminism is not intersectional, does not include women of color, does not include trans people, LGBTQ community, right, etc., then it's not really feminism. It's actually white entitlement. So Nancy and all these other people who are erasing people of color and their voices, you need to listen to them. You need to listen to these women because more often than not, they are correct. Okay. Unfortunately, that's all I got. All the time I got for you guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, or becoming a channel member. Thanks to all you as well who support us on the internet. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.